Vandeham Shri Guru.
Thank you for joining us. I'd like to know what humility means to you. Well, what does it mean to you? You want some more time?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Chris? Does the word mean anything to you? Yeah?
To know your strengths and weaknesses.
To know one's strength and weaknesses, that's humility. That's nice, interesting.
Lay down some, like anything that has anything that you have achieved.
To play it down.
Yeah.
Why would you play it down?
Don't blow the trumpet. Just
Oh, non-boastful. So not boasting. Okay, that's a negative way of saying. Harshringer, what does humility mean to you?
It is strength of my character to overcome all the negativities, but to know that it is not my achievement, but the God's will that it should be.
Okay, interesting. I'll write a few things. So this is awareness of strength and weakness. In other words, non-boastful. And then you said, what would you say? The second part of it?
According to me, humility has to do with not putting myself in my achievements, basically. It's God's will and, blessings that I am able to achieve, not me per se.
Okay. Anyone else?
Being down to earth.
Being down to earth. Is that humility or is that a feature of humility?
Feature of him.
Okay. Anything else? Oh, learned audience.
Being able to give up your ego and serve someone or learn from someone. Accepting a higher authority, probably.
You said three things. Which would you like?
All three.
Acting according to our position.
Acting according to our position. What is our position?
The real position, the spiritual general position.
The sage is quiet for giving others a chance to speak.
our honest position of who we are, knowing who we really are.
Knowing who we really are.
Well,
I like
being
the
honest
first
of
one.
our own position.
Okay. Anything that's not covered in this? Do you want to take a stab?
I was trying to come up with the definition, but what keeps coming to my mind is to deny self for others. To deny self for others.
Or deny self for others.
Yeah.
First, let's start with what humility is not. Because sometimes it's easier to start with what it's not than to what it is. So what it is not is like low self-esteem or so timid and meek and shy that can't get a word out of one's mouth, or feeling of weakness, or seeing oneself in a position of weakness and lack of strength, power, courage. Generally, people assign humility to mean one of these, but which was not true. That's not humility. The working definition of humility, and we're talking from a yogi's perspective. Okay? For a yogi, meaning for any one of us who's trying to connect our consciousness with the Supreme Consciousness, with God, humility would mean to see ourselves in our real position with the Absolute Truth. Whenever we are in that real position, that is called humility. So what is our real position with or in reference to the Absolute Truth? The opposite of humility is often understood. What is the opposite of humility?
Proud.
Egoistic.
Egoistic, egocentric, proud. And all these, basically what it does is that it makes us believe and convinced that somehow we are the source of all strength, of all power, magnanimity, compassion, that somehow we are the source of it. That's why somebody who's proud cannot recognize that they are not the source of whatever is happening. We generally think, like in the sense of being charitable. When we see somebody and we want to give something in charity, the general tendency is to think, I have something, they don't have something, let me give what I have to what they don't have. That kind of charitable charity is actually egocentric, because it assumes or presumes that I have something, that I'm already better than someone because I have something. So that's egotistical. That's a little prideful. Humility, on the other hand, brings one to being an instrument of divine will, or like Harsh Singer said, God's will. To know what is God's will and to act within God's will is humility. And for a yogi, this is the first lesson. To not know this lesson, a yogi becomes unsuccessful in his or her search for truth. That's one. Second, humility also means to understand and to realize one's insignificance in the broader context of things. For example, if any one of us were to die today, will it matter to the world? Absolutely not. But do we think like that? No, we don't. So that's the absence of humility. When we understand our insignificance right now that insignificance is not clear because we have some realm of jurisdiction where there is significance. Within my family, I'm a very important person. Ask the family, they will tell you. Or within a community, or within a nation, or even a planet, some top political leader. One might think, I'm the top leader of this entire planet, and I'm very significant. If the fellow dies, for whatever reason, the world's not going to come to a screeching halt because, a leader, no, it moves on. But one who understands his or her insignificance is a yogi on the path of realization. One time, a young yogi asked the founder of the Hare Krishna movement, Srila Prabhupada, he said, I'm having difficulty feeling humble. So he narrated a little thing for him. He said, there are, in creation, there are unlimited universes. And that's just 1/4 of all of creation, because 3/4 is the spiritual realm, and 1/4 is the material realm. And within that 1/4 material realm, there are innumerable universes. As many universes as mustard seeds in a sack of mustard. How many is that? Unlimited. And our universe is like one tiny mustard seed, which the dimension of one universe is about 4 billion miles in diameter. That's like a tiny mustard seed. I said in that tiny mustard seed like universe, there are billions and billions of planets and stars and so many astral bodies. Of those, one very tiny speck is the earth. Correct? And in that tiny speck called earth, there are so many countries, of which one country is the United States. And in the United States, there are so many cities. And one city called Los Angeles. And in Los Angeles, there are so innumerable number of streets. One street called Watsika Avenue. And on Watsika Avenue, there are so many houses and all of that. And so many people. And one among those so many people is you. And you're having problem feeling small and insignificant. Like, who are you? Like, nobody. But the problem for a person who's not a yogi or not wanting to be a yogi is that there is something that operates, which we know very well. We call it the false ego. The false ego says, I am very great, I am very big, I am very important to this family, this country, this community, to humanity, etc. I am indispensable. And because of that, a person struggles in life. But for a yogi, before we get there, there's a very nice saying that helps me in my life, is that the graveyard is full of indispensable people. You understand? You know who's indispensable? Well, the word indispensable means cannot do without. So if I think I'm an indispensable person, that means if I die, the world will come to an end. It will come to a stop. But there are many persons who thought like that, and the graveyard is full of them. And things happen to the world. Everything's going on pretty fine. Right? So humility is to understand our insignificance. While we understand our insignificance, in the grand scheme of things, we are probably a billionth of that. side by side, we have to understand the vastness, the greatness, the power, the infinite potency of, we say, God or absolute truth. Both together define humility. It's not just my insignificance. It is also the absolute significance of the absolute truth. Both must be there. Then a yogi has something to look forward to. If we are all insignificant, then what's there to look forward to? Correct? So both are necessary. God's infinite power, strength, compassion, love, kindness, mercy, and our very, very insignificant position. These two make a person, or put together, make us humble. Or that's what's called humility. Said differently, when we recognize and act according to our position is insignificant. So when we act according to that insignificant position, we are being humble. And when the infinite acts according to his infinite position, he is being humble. How many of you have ever read the Bhagavad Gita? Heard the word Bhagavad Gita? Okay, that's good. My sister-in-law once protested about the Bhagavad Gita. He said, I have a problem with the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, he keeps talking about himself. That he is the source of everything. He is the supreme. And that everyone should come to the understanding that he is God and should serve him. It sounds very egotistical. Like such an ego, like such an ego trip. He's only talking about himself. So, she asked me, what do you think of that? I said, on the contrary, I think Krishna is being very humble. So, wow, what do you mean by that? I said, suppose in a room full of men, right, there is the President of the United States also. Okay? And someone, we don't know who he is, let's say. We're really clueless who that is. And someone makes an announcement. We would like the President of the United States, the leader of one of the most powerful nations on planet Earth, please step up. What would you think Barack Obama would do? Would he say, it's not about me at all? Or he would step up. And that is his humility in one sense, because we're not comparing him to a very humble person or this. Please get the context. I'm not saying Barack Obama is a very humble person. But among all being invited as the President of the United States, if he steps up, that's his rightful position for 4 years. And 4 more maybe. Yeah, 4 more. That's his rightful position. So when he acts according to his rightful position, he is being humble. If I were to stand up and say, then they would say, who are you? Right? So when God says, I'm the source of everything, I am creating everything, that is truthful position. If I were to say something, I'm creating something, I think the only thing I'm creating is hot air. Nothing else. You understand? So when a yogi, that is a spiritual aspirant, works on that understanding that compared to God or the absolute truth, I am very, very tiny. And because I'm very tiny and insignificant, there is a lot for me to receive from the absolute truth. That is a yogi's humility. And it never forgets that. Doesn't matter how evolved the yogi might be, that is always the position. That in comparison to God, I am very, very insignificant. And in most, I guess, religions or spiritual circles, this is called instrumentality. because one then becomes only an instrument of God's will. So in the life of, let's say, Jesus did for people what no one else could do. But nowhere did he express, from what I've understood, that somehow he's the one doing everything. He always called himself as the instrument of God or the servant of God. Because tiny compared to the absolute, but just being an instrument. When one thinks of oneself as insignificant, one's significance actually grows. When one thinks of oneself as very significant, his or her insignificance grows. So spiritual concepts work quite differently from our material paradigms. Material paradigm is more is better. The louder I am, the more popular I get, like that. And the more votes I have, the more powerful I am, the greater I be, like that. The spiritual circle is quite the opposite. That's why you see those who are spiritually elevated, they do not go after the same things that materially motivated persons go after. A materially motivated person goes after wealth, goes after name, fame, all of those things, material goods. But a spiritualist goes the opposite direction. Doesn't go for material goods, name, fame, all that. But where does the name, fame follow? Follows the spiritualist actually. Doesn't follow the materialist. Even if it follows the materialist, after about 50 years, 60 years, we don't even know. How many of us speak about Rockefeller every day? How many of us speak about the great saints or know about them? Literally everyone. So humility is a very special quality necessary for advancing one's consciousness. So we were all meditating and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. The way to chant that mantra is when we pray from a very insignificant position. Can we say that we have all strength in this world? Can we say that we have enough strength at all? No, we may have some relative strengths, Someone can lift 50 pounds, someone can lift 100 pounds, whatever. But that's where it ends. Give us a few years, and we'll barely be able to lift anything. Others have to lift us. Called the pallbearers. So our strength, whatever we have, when we were younger, maybe we were very good looking. Few years later, hair goes away, teeth go away, everything grays up, cannot see properly, whatever, things change. So when we chant Hare Krishna, when we meditate on that mantra, the way to do it is, I'm very, very tiny. And my consciousness is very easily affected. What's the easily affected? That I can very easily get attracted to, get deviated towards materialism. The same things that I was running after, I have a tendency that I will even do it now. So please let me be in this position of calling out to the absolute truth, to God for His strength, for His mercy, for His compassion. So whatever comes to me that I can share with others. This is called humility. Then a yogi should know what should he or she use his or her time, energy, strength for. If a person lives their life simply for the benefit of others, that is a true yogi. Most people live for themselves, completely about themselves. There are categories of persons who are even lower than that. They don't do anything even for themselves. They're called losers, right? It's a mode of ignorance. They don't do anything beneficial for themselves either. In fact, they do things hurtful for themselves. Right? Drug addiction, alcohol addiction, violence, crime, all these things are hurtful for themselves. Higher than that are persons who at least do things for themselves. We call them selfish. But there's no fun in being selfish. Although it's just a good ride though. I get more, I get more. But a real yogi is a person who lives for others, for benefiting others. Now there are some circumstantial benefiters, and then there are some unconditional benefiters. Circumstantial benefiters means they do things for others as long as the ride is nice. When something changes in their life, someone throws back an aspersion at them, or someone insults them, or they lose money, or they lose their job, or something. Their conditions change, and so their serving others, that also changes. It's conditional, it's circumstantial. And then there are the unconditional ones. The unconditional ones, it doesn't matter what is happening around in the world. Their service unto others, to benefit others, will not change. Correct? And even higher than them, or the topmost, are those yogis or persons who are living their lives as a service to God, just to connect others to God. This is the greatest humility that anyone can express. And that's not available for the ordinary person, unless one develops one's consciousness all the way up. To serve the absolute truth of God's will unconditionally. Unconditionally means whatever happens. Their life is threatened. They may have money, they may not have money. They may have heart attacks. They may be completely without anything in terms of assets with them. Yet they are fixed in the determination to serve others. And serve others means to make others somehow connected to the absolute truth. Remember, because the person themselves are very insignificant. So it's not about them. It is about the absolute, the infinite. Someone who can do that. And if we ever get an opportunity to meet someone like that, then we should know that we're very, very fortunate to do so. So that kind of humility is the true asset or ornament, as the Buddha said. Ornament of a yogi. The question to ask ourselves, I'm not going to keep this long because this is a heavy topic. This is more for internalizing, something to think about, is where in the spectrum are we? Number one. And two, are we doing anything with our lives to move in that direction? Helping someone on the material level is nice, but it's really not nice. Helping someone on the material level means helping grandma across the street, or feeding the poor, or giving money to the needy or something like that. That's nice. That's really not nice. Because it's nice only in that context. But it doesn't do anything for the betterment of their life forever. But spiritual welfare or health means that somehow you connect the person to the absolute truth, to God, such that forever that they are benefited. So if any of us is interested in actual welfare activity to help others, that would be the real help to do. Now then, the first step is, how can I help someone if I myself are not connected? If I'm not connected to God, how can I connect someone else to God? True? I can't give someone what I don't have. If you ask me for $1 million, I'll tell you a joke. There was a person sitting, reading his newspaper, and a beggar came by. And he said, looks like a rich guy. If I flatter him, maybe he'll give me money. So he told him, oh, you look so regal, so like a majestic king on a throne. So the guy looked from his newspaper, saw the beggar, called out to his wife and said, give him $200. He said, oh, this is really working. And he said, not only are you regal like a king, you're so charitably disposed that you're the epitome of charity. So the man turned around and said, called out to his wife and said, that new wristwatch, give it away to this fellow. So, oh, fantastic. Then he started flattering his wife. He said, oh, your wife must be so supportive. She must be the emblem of chastity, that whatever you say, she follows. He said, oh, bring him all the wonderful food that we had cooked, all the sweets, just give it away to him. So I said, oh, this is really good. He waited and waited, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, the wife never came. So I was like, what's going on? So I said, excuse me, sir. Yes. I'm waiting for the $200, the wristwatch, all the sweets. So I said, why should I give you all these things? He said, you just called out to your wife to bring all this? So the man said, look, what did you do to me? You spoke big words and flattered me. So I returned the big words to you and flattered you. So the deal is done, you can go now. Not like that. We can't give to someone what we don't have. We go in an airplane, right? How many of us pay attention to the announcement the flight attendants make with their little, oxygen mask, seat belt little thing? Anyone pay attention? I wonder what a job they must have, that they're speaking to about 150 people and nobody looks at them. The only person they know that if someone is looking at them, oh, they're flying for the first time. If you've flown on a plane more than once, you never pay attention to the flight attendant, especially the announcement she's making about safety. Like, whatever. Right? With the seat belt, buckle it like this. I don't know why they do it. But one of the announcements they do make is, in the event of low pressure or something, the oxygen mask will automatically fall. And first, put it on yourself. And then help the person next to you. In fact, they show mother and child. That the mother should first put to herself and then to the child. Correct? So the idea is, if we want to help others, first step in that is to help ourselves. And this is not selfish. This is the right thing to do. Even on the material platform, it makes sense. I don't like to see people ill or with a disease, so I decide to become a doctor. Well, that would be nice. But suppose I don't like people falling sick and I want to cure people of their diseases. And I figure out how to do this. Well, you have to be a doctor. Oh, it takes about 17 years to go through medical school. Who wants to waste time? Let me help people right now. I want to administer medicine to you. Would you take my medicine? No. Why? Well, first I need to become qualified as a caregiver, a medical professional. So if I have the vision of helping others, it requires for me to prepare myself first. That's part of humility. That I don't know something and I have to learn. So that's another aspect. Insignificance of ourselves, the significance of the absolute truth of God, and that I want to learn. I want to know. It's called the spirit of inquiry. Without humility, a person will never learn. When we come to school or college, we come to class, that's an expression of material humility. Hey, I don't know anything about whatever course I'm taking, I want to learn. But that material humility goes away because after a semester, oh, I know it. Or I know enough that I don't need to hear from this professor anymore. Spiritual humility is that doesn't change for me. Because I'm going towards the infinite, I infinitely don't know anything. that position doesn't change. So these qualities are important for a yogi. I don't know. I want to know. And I'm very, very insignificant. Then our meditation, or what we're doing, is chanting, this has some meaning to it. So I'll see if there are some comments. Adela?
I wanted to ask if you can maybe narrate something from historical records about, you talked about personalities who are the top-notch, they're unconditionally benefiting others. Maybe an example would really help during that period.
Many examples. The life of Jesus. Let's start there. His whole life was meant for serving others so that they will become spiritually more advanced, that they will come to know about God. His life was threatened once, twice, multiple times. In fact, they even crucified him. And even then, right on the cross, all he was thinking about is how to bring to people the message of God. That is called unconditional. In our Vaishnava history, there are many persons. Many, in fact, Vaishnava history is full of them. The life of Ramanujacharya, and I'll narrate the story if you like, or the life of, in the more recent history, about 400 or 500 years ago, there's a person called Vasudev. Vasudev had a particular disease, like leprosy, for some reason. And there were tiny maggots that were eating away into his flesh. And he by himself was so compassionate, if the maggot would fall on the floor, he would pick it up and put it back on his skin. Just because that's the way the maggot would get to feed himself. That means at the cost of his own body. It's very rare for somebody to give up their own body for the welfare of others. It's very rare. We may do something for others once in a while. But to live like that every day, every moment, is a far cry. It's just not something to be imitated. We can't do it. Like if a dog were to come and gnaw at us, oh, keep going. We can't do it. We just don't have the spiritual strength to do so. Or Prahlad. Prahlad is a 5-year-old boy. And he was spiritually very advanced, even when he was 5-year-old. And his father was dead against his, spiritual activity and threatened to kill him. He said, my life is meant for serving others. In the message of Vishnu. So it went from threat to actual punishment. The father made him, or actually trampled him under wild elephants. Not a scratch on his body. So what's going on? So maybe something went wrong. Then he asked him to be put into a wok of hot oil, to fry him. Nothing, not a scratch came. Put him into a pit of deadly snakes. The snakes didn't do anything to him. Couldn't do anything to him. Then he was pierced with spears and lances. Nothing happened to him. He was thrown from a mountain top. Nothing happened to him. So it's his own father, dead against this young child, but always felt protected by Vishnu. And even more recent would be, at least for me, would be the founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. The Prabhupada, we say Srila Prabhupada, his name is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. At the age of 70, so imagine, if we can imagine what 70-year-old would be. I mean, for us it's probably 50 years away, but at the age of 70, the order or the request was from his guru or teacher to go out to the West and educate people about Krishna or God and bring them up spiritually. He tried and tried and tried for 40 years without success. He still didn't give up. So that itself is a power of humility, that you never give up. And then at the age of 70, still didn't get any funding or no sponsors from the United States. Somehow somebody was very kind, and they said there's a cargo ship that was going from India to US, and they gave him a reservation on a cargo ship. It's not even like, what's that? The Princess, these big ships where, what's it called?
Cruise?
Cruises. It's not like that. It's a cargo ship. At the age of 70, with rupees worth $4, which you cannot change or exchange anyway, a bag of cereal, a box of books, and one address in Butler, Pennsylvania, of the persons who invited him to come to the US. Didn't know anyone, didn't know whether to turn left or to turn right, landed in Boston Harbor. And en route, had 2 heart attacks. And still was determined that I will make it there because I have a higher service to do. I mean, that's just the beginning of it. How many 70-year-olds after 2 heart attacks last? Still made it. And the first year in New York was full of challenges. Typewriter got stolen. His money got stolen. He didn't have anything. He lived in the Lower East Side, which was called where all the acid heads were. No one recognized, what a great personality is, but he was sitting in oblivion. But yet, was determined. That was the humility. Didn't give up. And slowly, people started coming, he was speaking, he became, more known, etc. And in all of this, the humility is that he's not relying on his own strength for this to happen. He's relying on Krishna's infinite will. And all of this started with simply sitting under a tree and doing what we just did, chanting Hare Krishna. People just started coming, one after the other. And after that, within a span of 11 years, he traveled around the globe 14 times. Established 108 such meditation centers and temples, and made Hare Krishna popular all over the planet, all within a span of 11 years since he was 70. This cannot be done by any ordinary person. And that was only 40 years ago. That is called the strength of humility. That's not one's own strength. That is God's will, anything can happen. So it's important to know what is God's will. Playing soccer is not God's will. Making money is not God's will. By God's will, money can come and can go. Mostly goes. But to carry out that will takes a whole different commitment of character. It's a quality of the character, as you said. Yeah, does that answer your question? Anything from sages in the back? Okay, we'll have lunch.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. If everybody in this world becomes a yogi,
Fantastic.
will there be a balance? Because
Why do we need a balance? Is there a problem if everyone becomes a yogi that the world is not going to come to a crumbling halt because everyone's a yogi? First of all, it will not happen. It will not happen. Everybody becomes a yogi. It will not happen.
because good should be balanced.
By bad? Why?
There's a symmetry existing in the
No.
nature.
No, not necessary. Not necessary. It's not necessary.
Then why wouldn't everybody become perfect?
Why would they become perfect? The question should be, why wouldn't they be perfect?
Yeah, why wouldn't that?
That's because within the material sphere, there is still the tendency to go for the temporary. Because within this realm, the material realm, the temporary has a lot of significance. It's called ignorance. Ignorance will continue.
So is it destined before previously? That
Well,
it should
this
happen
material,
like
this is the feature of the material realm. Ignorance is a feature of the material realm. It's like saying, will ever a time come where the planet will be free? There will be no prison on the planet. There will always be prisons. But our effort is not to say abolish prisons. Our effort is to get persons out of prison so they don't go back in. But there will always be prison. New persons will populate prison.
Is it not like a cycle? Good increases and again evil comes and again good. Is it not like that?
Both exist simultaneously.
But now we have seen a rise in evil compared to the last 50 years, right? In the world, crimes and all. So
Yeah,
is it like on
we
a
call
rise?
it ignorance. Yes, it's an increase because materialism is increasing. The strength of ignorance is increasing.
So it reaches to a threshold and then again it falls. Is it like that?
Well, from a Vedic perspective, there is called Satyuga, Treta, Dwapar and Kali. And Kali is supposed to be like the most prevalent, strong time before Satyuga comes back after 427,000 years. But it doesn't mean that there is no evil or bad during that time. The prevalence is smaller.
So after this Kali Yuga, what might happen?
Satyuga comes. What comes after the night?
Day.
Day. What comes after the day?
Night.
And when does it stop? Like that. Time moves like that.
Because even sun's age is limited for like next. After sun is exhausted. Can
It
we
hasn't been
expect
exhausted in all these billions of years. And it does not get exhausted. That is the very significant scientist posing some theories. The sun's energy will come to an end, sure.